Hey guys, welcome to the Liberal Hive Mind. We need to be constantly challenging narratives. I remember a time where I was in school and we would have these conversations about ethics, and purposely the teacher would choose a very tough subject, and the teacher would say one side has to argue pro and one side has to argue against. And if you were on the side of pro, you would have to come up with a valid argument to justify the behavior, even if you were in a tough spot. We would be discussing all elements of ethics, we'd be analyzing the situation from multiple different facets and worldviews, and it was an intellectual exercise. That's all it was. Like when you're in debate class in school, you might be defending something that's relatively indefensible, but you try and you make an argument, and it's part of the process, it's part of the practice. It shows us and teaches us the importance of debating, open discussion, even when discussing controversial ideas. And what I find interesting is that when you go to school, well, if you go to a good school, that is, you're taught these types of ideas, you're taught to challenge narratives, you're taught to challenge ethical standards, but in the real world and in the world of politics, apparently you're not supposed to do that. No, apparently that real bad. Don't question the narrative, just simply buy in and be a mindless drone supporting the current thing. I can't buy into that. I'm sitting here asking myself, why aren't we having these important, tough conversations and debates? And in this case, we ought to be having that conversation because a man's life is being ruined. The question is what's happening right now justified? I don't know, I'm not exactly so sure, and I'm a little bit confused as to why there isn't just a general sort of sense of confusion surrounding this topic in general. Folks, Derek Chauvin, the police officer charged with the ending of George Floyd, was just stabbed in federal prison. We gotta have a conversation about this. So let's roll the tape. All right, folks, so of course the leftoids are instantly going to disregard this news story as well. He had it coming. He's a bigot racist. And so anything that happens to him moving forward is justified. I'm sure we're going to hear a lot of that coming from the radical left, but I'd rather approach this from a point of compassion. Imagine being Derek Chauvin. That's the way I think about it. Imagine being Derek Chauvin, and you were just trying to do your job. You were on the call. You were called to a specific location where somebody was doing something illegal. You then arrest him. He continues to resist and resist and resist. You're trying your best to subdue him. It's likely that he ingested a deadly dose of drug cocktail. You're literally following protocol. You have your knee on his back shoulder. From what we saw in the video evidence, it was never actually on his neck. Based on the autopsy, there was no damage found, no neck injury, which could have led to George Floyd dying due to asphyxiation. I think the end theory was that his respiratory function was blocked just enough to where he suffered a heart attack, something along those lines. I wouldn't call it conclusive, especially considering the amount of drugs that were in his system, being unable to breathe and then passing away. Well, that's kind of overdose, That's literally the definition of an opiate overdose. And so there's plausible deniability. Was it the drugs or was it Derek Chauvin? I think that's a legitimate question to ask. There is legitimate curiosity, there are legitimate questions surrounding the George Floyd events. Well, could you imagine being Derek Chauvin? You feel as though you did everything right. You feel as though you were just doing your job, you were doing what you were supposed to, what you were told to do, working for the state. Then the state turns on you in one of the biggest, most politicized events in the modern news cycle, and you're thrown in prison for the rest of your life. Could you imagine how that feels? You become public enemy number one. I mean, in many people's eyes, you are literally the devil. And then, of course, you're just thrown in the federal prison system for nobody to care, simply eaten alive by the justice system, locked away, the key is thrown away, and simply forgotten. Then what happens? Well, you obviously have a reputation because the media has been attacking you, labeling you, psychoanalyzing you, and attributing malice to you for, years upon years. You show up in prison, and then, of course, you're, again, public enemy number one. People know exactly who you are. Word travels fast in a prison. It's like a freaking high school. Instantly, everybody knows who you are. Instantly, all of a sudden, you have a racial target on your back. We all know how race is a factor in prison gangs. The segregation, the separation, the aggression towards other people of rival factions. It was pretty expected what Derek Chauvin's fate would be in the federal prison system. And that's exactly what happened. Ex-officer Derek Chauvin, convicted in George Floyd's killing, was stabbed in prison, AP sources say. Derek Chauvin, former Minneapolis police officer, convicted of murdering George Floyd, was stabbed by another inmate and seriously injured Friday at a federal prison in Arizona, a person familiar with the matter told told the Associated Press. The attack happened at the Federal Correctional Institution, Tucson, a medium security prison that has been plagued by security lapses and staffing shortages. The prison was not authorized to publicly discuss details of the attack and spoke to the AP on the condition of anonymity. The Bureau of Prisons confirmed that an incarcerated person was assaulted at FCI, Tucson, at around 12:30 p.m. local time on Friday. In a statement, the agency said responding employees contained the incident and performed life-saving measures before the inmate, who it did not name, was taken to a hospital for further treatment and evaluation. And so pretty much everything that we expected that would happen is happening. We expected that the state would throw this guy under the bus, that his trial wouldn't be a serious trial, but rather just a, kind of theater trial where he's thrown to the wolves, thrown to the pack, sacrificed in order to make this whole George Floyd situation simply disappear or slowly fizzle out. And I know a lot of people rejoiced in the idea that justice was achieved here, but I feel like anybody being truly honest here, not being emotional, not buying into the racial narrative, I'm black, therefore I believe that Derek Chauvin was a racist murderer. If you're not letting the bias control you, the emotions control you, if you're not falling for the media propaganda and you're analyzing the facts here, it is possible, I'd argue it's quite likely, that Derek Chauvin is innocent. That Derek Chauvin and his actions didn't end George Floyd's life, but rather George Floyd's own actions put him in the predicament and created the scenario, created the entire situation, put in place all the factors that led to his own demise. And if that instance is even a possibility, even a slight possibility, shouldn't there be any concern at all that an innocent man is now rotting in prison because the public wanted his head? Shouldn't there be any concern that that man, who could very likely be innocent, is now being stabbed in prison by crazed inmates? And the federal government is totally not concerned, just letting it happen. No intent to protect him. No intent to really even think about it for more than 5 seconds. Let's have a conversation about ethics. The left keeps telling us that actually we're bad people for even suggesting that Derek Chauvin might be innocent, because we don't buy into the narrative instantly that anytime anybody meets a, let's call it, unfortunate fate at the hands of a police encounter, that automatically the police are wrong and that the black person is the victim. We're the bad people because we're ignoring racism in the country. But I don't know, I feel like the bad people in an instance like this are the people who are so willing to buy a narrative and throw a man's life away without questioning the facts, without really delving into the details, without effectively looking over the video footage, without effectively understanding George Floyd's past. I feel like the side that lacks a basic moral compass is the side that is so willing to celebrate the fact that a man like Derek Chauvin was stabbed in federal prison rather than questioning, whoa, this guy's now getting stabbed. Did we do the right thing here? I don't get why we aren't asking that question. It really is kind of bothering me. This George Floyd thing has been weighing heavy on my mind for a very long time. I think people treat it as just another news story, but I don't. I think about the police officers who were involved in this situation quite often, and I truthfully believe, it is my personal opinion, that the police officers here were not at fault. Yet we just saw one of the police officers involved get sentenced to 5 years in federal prison for simply standing. That to me is insane. All these police officers have maintained their innocence. They've maintained their story since the start. I don't think people have taken their story seriously. I don't think they were given a fair shot in their trial, and I simply don't understand how we're not having a continued conversation about this, because I really think the federal courts got it wrong. I think the jury got it wrong. I think people got it wrong, and now it's even more wrong. The consequences are even more real, as a potential innocent man not only was forced to lose everything, but is now in grievous danger in federal prison with a massively bright target on his back. It's just not sitting well with me, and I know the left will say, oh, well, that's because you're a racist and you support racist white police officers like Derek Chauvin. But it has really nothing to do with that. I mean, if Derek Chauvin was black and the other individual was white, I'd have the same opinion. I just don't like the idea of possibly innocent people being thrown in prison for life and getting stabbed. I don't like that sacrifice at the woke altar of celebrating racial vengeance. That to me seems effed up. It feels almost like I'm at a witch trial, the burning of the witch, with a bunch of crazed leftists just salivating for blood. To me, it's insane. And I'm having a little bit of trouble stomaching it. It's not like ruining my life or anything. It's not like I'm suffering depression or anxiety. That's not what I'm trying to say. But it's just not sitting well with me. And I don't understand how people don't have questions. That's really the point of the video. Anyways, that's what I got for you guys. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure to leave a like and possibly subscribe. Thanks for watching, friends, and I'll see you on the next one.